Good morning, Year 5. Right, we're on to Chapter 18, Marvin, and it looks like somebody else might get a beetle. Downstairs, Pickering was trying to glare at Humphrey, but his eyes kept closing. "I think it's time for bed," he said, pushing his chair backwards. "Good idea," Humphrey yawned. "Big day tomorrow." "Yes, a glorious day." Pickering slumped forwards. "Pickers, you've fallen asleep with your face in the noodles." "No, I haven't." Pickering sat up with a noodle stuck to his forehead. Humphrey got up and Pickering tried to stand too. "Ugh, the room's spinning. That champagne has gone to my head." The cousins staggered out of the kitchen and upstairs. "It's a bit like chopping down a tree," Bertolt said to Darkus, pushing his glasses up his nose, "except more complicated because we want some bits to fall down and some bits to stay up." He and Darkus were kneeling on the floor, poring over the architectural plans of the building that Uncle Max had given them. Newton bobbed about above Bertolt's head while Baxter sat calmly on Darkus's shoulder, resting. They were surrounded by beetles gathered about them on the floor and up the walls. "This bit of floor first." Bertolt moved his finger to the ceiling above Pickering's bedroom, "then this bit, and so on." Darkus looked at the best beetles and the Asian longhorn. "Is it clear to you what you and your larvae need to do?" The beetles buzzed and clicked to show that they understood. "Good, then you need to take your larvae up to the joist in the attic and start eating." He watched the furniture, death watch and powder post beetles scurry after the best beetles. "Those of you eroding iron and metal," Bertolt said, "or breaking down cement and brick, your task is harder, so I've made something to help." Blister beetles, bark beetles and bombardiers shimmied forwards as Bertolt pulled a cardboard box out of his bag and lifted the lid. Inside were 4 blue tubes with long fuses. "Where did you learn to make bombs?" Virginia asked, looking over his shoulder. "They're not bombs, they're explosive charges," Bertolt corrected her. "What's the difference?" Darkus asked. "Explosive charges are controlled chemical reactions in a confined space. The beetles will make a hole and wedge one of these into it. I'll trigger them for a safe distance, and there's one for each floor." "You're a total pyromaniac," Virginia said, sounding impressed. "Are you going to be all right, with all the beetles?" Darkus asked. "I'll be fine," Bertolt smiled. "Newton's made me see I was being silly. I'm not frightened of them anymore." Darkus patted his arm and then froze as he saw the door handle turn. "The door's locked." Humphrey half-heartedly threw his weight against it. "How can that be? We got it open. Pickers, I can't get into my bedroom." "I don't care," Pickering muttered, concentrating on putting one foot in front of the other as he pushed himself upstairs to his own bedroom on the next floor. "Where am I going to sleep?" Humphrey stumbled after his cousin. "I'm not sleeping on the floor again." With a great lurch, Pickering threw himself into his bedroom and collapsed onto the bed, instantly unconscious. "What about me?" Humphrey blundered in and sat down on the end of Pickering's bed with a crash, lifting the other end several feet off the floor. Pickering didn't move, and Humphrey fell asleep with his head against the wall, oblivious to the fact he was sitting on Pickering's legs. As soon as they heard Humphrey's snores, Darkus and Virginia moved the armchair and crept up to the 3rd floor to check on the cousins. "Look at this," Darkus whispered, standing in the doorway of Pickering's bedroom. Virginia hung back. "They might wake up," she mouthed. Darkus shook his head and beckoned her over. "No, look." Virginia came up and peered over his shoulder. "How? That's going to be uncomfortable in the morning," she said, seeing Pickering's shins under Humphrey's backside. "I know," Darkus grinned. "Pity I won't be here to see it." He thought about what he was about to do and felt a surge of energy rush up through his chest. He was going back into towering heights to bring his father home. He took a deep breath, letting it out slowly. "Right. Phase 2. Let's move Beetle Mountain." Bertolt poked his head out of Humphrey's bedroom as Darkus sped back down. "Did it work?" he asked. "They're out cold. Sparko," Darkus whispered over his shoulder, racing on down through the kitchen and into the Emporium shop and arriving at the manhole. He lifted the board they'd used to cover it. Screwed into the floor beside the open hole were tracks that supported the heavy iron cover. Inside the rim of the hole was a series of cogs and levers connected to spools of thick wire looped around the metal disc. Bertolt had made a mechanism that would allow Virginia to close and open the manhole cover using 2 handles while standing on the ladder. "If you aren't enlisting for the battle tomorrow," Darkus said to the seemingly empty shop, "you need to get underground and prepare for the rebuild of Beetle Mountain." A pool of beetles bubbled up out of the floorboards, growing and fizzing as it flowed towards him like a wave of cola. When it reached the edge of the manhole, the wash of beetles became a cascading waterfall. With Baxter on his shoulder, woozy after the effects of the sleeping powder, Darkus leapt over the stream of beetles and headed back upstairs, taking 2 steps at a time. In Humphrey's bedroom, Virginia was standing at the foot of Beetle Mountain, fiddling with the pigtail above her right ear and wondering whether they should bring the butterfly bush with them. There seemed to be lots of beetles on it, and she knew plenty of beetles ate nectar. "I'm not sure if you can understand me," she said to the mountain, feeling a bit foolish, "but if you burrow under the roots of that tree and work them free, then I could bring it down to your new home." "They can understand you," Bertolt reassured her. He was right. The beetles disappeared into the crockery, and gradually the bush tilted towards Virginia. As she reached up to catch it, a shower of beetles flipped, fell, and flew from its branches. A chunky red beetle with a bobble-like head and giant hind legs dropped onto her forehead and clung on. "Hey!" She went cross-eyed, trying to look at it. "How am I supposed to put this tree down with a frog-legged leaf beetle like you hanging on my face?" The frog-legged leaf beetle didn't move. Virginia bent her knees and carefully lowered the butterfly bush to the floor. She held her hand up to the bridge of her nose. "Want to ride down?" The beetle crawled onto her hand. It was about 5 centimetres in length, a bit smaller than Newton, and its cherry-red exoskeleton shimmered as it moved, making it look metallic. "You're a fine-looking fella, and those are some massive legs. I'll bet you can jump." The red beetle shook its head and crawled off the edge of Virginia's palm, hanging upside down from the back of her hand, all 6 of its feet clinging to the surface of her skin as if held on by suction pads. "Oh, I get it. You think you're Spider-Man," Virginia chuckled, or Spider-Beetle, I should say, "although you look more like a poisonous tree frog." She flipped her hand over so the beetle was standing the right way up. "Humans can go upside down too, you know." She carefully put the beetle onto the butterfly bush and leant backwards, throwing her arms over her head and dropping into a crab. She flicked her legs up into a handstand. "See? Very impressive," Bertolt clapped. Darkus walked in. "The pathway down to the sewer is clear," he said, looking amused as she righted herself. Virginia felt a tickling sensation. The metallic red beetle had landed on her and was walking up her arm. "Who's your friend?" Darkus asked. Virginia lifted her elbow. "This is a spidey-skilled frog-legged leaf beetle. I think he lives in the butterfly tree." "He's cool." Darkus peered at the beetle's strong back legs. "He looks like he's made of metal. What are you going to call him?" he asked as the beetle climbed up Virginia's neck. "Call him?" Darkus nodded. "Well, can't you tell? He's decided you're his human." "Really? Do you think so?" Virginia rolled her eyes about, trying to look at the frog-legged leaf beetle on her neck. "Maybe he liked my handstand." She thought for a moment. "If he sticks around, I'll call him Marvin, after Marvin Gaye, the best musician of all time." The beetle rose up onto its strong hind legs and did a little dance, waggling his front legs like arms and bopping his antennae. "I think Marvin approves," Darkus laughed. Okay, guys, see you tomorrow.